Lydia Ko, the youngest golfer to ever be ranked number 1 in the world. She has 19 wins on the LPGA Tour, including 2 major championships and a golf swing that certainly reflects all of those accolades. Let's talk about some aspects of Ko's golf swing that any golfer can learn from to improve their swing. Let's start off by looking at address. The first thing that I notice when looking at an address like Ko's is that it's extremely relaxed. Now, a lot of golfers get a little bit fidgety over the golf ball. They have certain ticks that they need to do before the golf swing, and that is fine, but it is important to understand that that can lead to a buildup of tension. It's important not to begin the golf swing with tension, because any tension in the arms will lead to inconsistencies throughout the golf swing, and obviously inconsistencies throughout the swing lead to inconsistencies in your striking. So having a very relaxed standard setup to the ball is really important for any golfer, really. So looking at Ko, there's a little bit of knee flexion, not a lot. Very good posture in the back, the shoulders slightly in front of the knees. Just textbook positioning and obviously being very relaxed can do nothing but good for you before you take that club back. Now let's talk about the takeaway. Ko has a slightly higher takeaway. The club does come up fairly upright, but it does shallow out through transition. The club face, when it passes by the hands, is slightly shut, which can lead to a little bit of a draw bias. There's nothing wrong with a draw bias, obviously. Generally off the tee, especially, that draw will get a few more yards than a fade. So the takeaway tempo itself is absolutely pure to me. I think it's very deliberate, but also controlled. Sometimes when people get too deliberate, they can get a little bit out of sync, and obviously when you get too fast, you can come over the top. So this takeaway for Ko is a very nice in between of both. Obviously, tempo in the takeaway, the swing rhythm, that depends on every golfer, but what I can say is if you're finding yourself a little bit rushed, trying to feel a very exaggerated takeaway, make it almost too slow just as a drill on the driving range, can really help level off your swing and get your positioning back in sync. So I would recommend trying to just slow it down. It's also important to film your golf swing at real-time speed. I know that it's very popular for people to film their swing in slow motion, and I totally understand the benefit of that, but also filming it in standard speed will help you get a better feel for that tempo and that swing rhythm that you have, not only through the takeaway, but in transition. In the top of the backswing, we see a very flat wrist, nice flexion of that trail arm, and a fairly straight leading arm, which is not something that is necessarily mandatory to be a great ball striker, but it is often a commonality. And then having that wrist and those hands kind of start the downswing is a really interesting part of this swing. It does create a lot of power, and those hands kind of bring that club into the slot, and that's quickly followed by the hips opening up through that impact. Obviously, the leveraging of the ground, you see that left leg getting pretty straight through the impact zone. The more straightened up that left leg is, the more it allows those hips to open up, which is textbook. This face-on view of Lydia Ko really shows how compact that swing is through the impact zone. Right at impact, you can see that trail leg, her right leg, almost leaving the ground. It's such a powerful move. That left leg allows the upper body to clear out as well, and obviously the upper body for her is what starts the transitional move. So having that impact positioning is just textbook. Look at that freeze frame right there as she's making contact with the ball. This is a knockdown swing, so her weight is a little bit more forward than normal, but so much to like about that move. A lot of people have a lot of debate about the head being down at impact. Should the head come up? People like Dustin Johnson have that head actually a little bit ahead of the ball, already coming out towards the impact positioning. Lydia Ko's head stays down well after the impact positioning, which is, again, this isn't something that works for everybody, but if you feel like your upper body is picking up too much, this is especially important with irons. If that upper body is coming out of the ball and it's already moving towards the target line too early, you're often going to thin your golf balls, and your low point control is going to be very inconsistent. You're not going to get get that low point after the swing. If that's something that you're struggling with, if you're hitting a lot of thin iron shots, then trying to keep that head down on the ball through and past impact can be really beneficial for you. Here are another few interesting angles of Ko's golf swing. From these angles, you can see a little bit more about her weight transfer in the golf swing. There is not a lot of horizontal sway in the hips. The hips rotate. They do not sway left to right, which is great for your consistency. Great. We see that very commonly in professional golfers. These are obviously the cream of the crop, super consistent with their ball striking, and a big reason for that is all of their movement in the hips and lower body is rotational. There's not left to right sway. There's no crazy shifts of body weight in the takeaway. It's very condensed, it's very compact, and that creates a great deal of consistency. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the golf swing of Lydia Ko. This is obviously someone who has had a great career on the LPGA Tour. And keep in mind, Lydia is only 26 years old. She just came out so early that we're used to hearing her name, seeing her atop of leaderboards, seeing her raising trophies. There is a lot more left in Lydia Ko's career. One of the greats, really excited to see how she continues to play. As always, thank you very much for watching these videos. Play well and take care.